The newly announced 30% on the European Union and Mexico set to go into effect on August 1st.
For Canada, we are only going to accept the best deal for Canada that is very much informed.
In a world increasingly shaped by global logistics, supply chains, and geopolitical trade routes, a significant transformation is quietly unfolding in North America. Two of the United States' closest trading partners, Canada and Mexico, have embarked on an ambitious infrastructure project that could redefine the flow of commerce across the continent. This initiative, known as the Northern Trade Corridor, is a rail and port network that connects Mexico's Pacific coast directly with Canada's major logistics hubs, bypassing the United States entirely. While this may sound like a diplomatic snub or a reactive move, the reality is far more nuanced. This corridor isn't about exclusion, it's about efficiency, resilience, and regional independence. As Canada and Mexico respond to rising trade volatility, tariff uncertainty, and shifting economic pressures, they are investing in infrastructure that prioritizes speed, cost savings, and sovereignty. This shift reflects a broader evolution in how nations approach international trade in the 21st century. At the center of this transformation is a bold idea. Why rely on U.S. border crossings, customs checkpoints, and tariff negotiations when you can build a corridor that avoids them entirely? Through this lens, the Northern Corridor emerges not as a challenge to the United States, but as a strategic hedge against trade friction and political unpredictability. The scope of this project is immense. The rail line stretches approximately 9,200 kilometers, linking the Canadian port of Prince Rupert, British Columbia, to Mazatlan, Sinaloa, on Mexico's Pacific coast. This massive investment is being funded by a mix of Canadian public funds, Mexican infrastructure spending, and even private capital from US-based investors. Yes, American money is helping build a trade route that skips American soil. Canada and Mexico are not improvising. They have been quietly preparing for this realignment for years. In March 2020, Canada committed 2.3 billion Canadian dollars from its National Trade Corridors Fund to expand and modernize its Pacific Gateway. The upgrades at Prince Rupert, including deeper berths, new grain terminals, and faster rail links through Saskatchewan, have increased the port's capacity to handle over 23 million tons of cargo per year, with more upgrades underway. Meanwhile, Mexico has taken similar steps. President Claudia Sheinbaum's administration greenlit a $1.6 billion investment in 6 major ports, including Veracruz, Altamira, and Mazatlan. These ports are being dredged, expanded, and modernized to handle larger ships and more container volume. Mexico's toll-free Sonora-Durango superhighway now connects inland production hubs with the coast, creating a seamless path for goods to reach Canadian markets without crossing U.S. borders. The motivation for this massive undertaking is clear: rising U.S. tariffs, especially under policies proposed for implementation by August 2025. These tariffs include a sweeping 30% duty on steel and auto parts industries that form the backbone of North America's manufacturing sector. Instead of engaging in rhetorical battles, Canada and Mexico have chosen concrete action. They're building an express lane around the fees. The economic impact for the U.S. could be substantial. U.S. Customs and Border Protection, CBP, collected $92.3 billion in duties and fees in fiscal year 2023. That revenue ranks second only to the Internal Revenue Service in terms of federal income. If even a small fraction of cargo shifts from U.S. entry points to the Northern Corridor, Washington's fiscal bottom line could take a hit. In addition, industries that depend on cross-border manufacturing like automotive, agriculture, and clean tech may face rising costs and increased competition from tariff-free imports that bypass U.S. customs entirely. Customs brokers refer to this as regulatory seepage when trade moves to avoid friction, not because of policy, but because of better logistics. Once infrastructure exists, freight will take the path of least resistance. And this is exactly what the Northern Corridor offers: speed, efficiency, and tariff immunity. The corridor also represents a leap forward in digital trade facilitation. Canada and Mexico have implemented a North American single-window customs system supported by blockchain technology. This system allows digital customs data to be validated once, then shared seamlessly between the two nations. U.S. systems, notably, are not included. By eliminating duplication and paperwork delays, shippers can save time, sometimes cutting clearance from 3-5 days down to less than 24 hours. This digital backbone poses another problem for the U.S. federal ledger. CBP charges a merchandise processing fee of $32.71 per shipment. In 2024, they processed 38.4 million entries, generating $1.26 billion in revenue from those fees alone. But when those shipments are handled digitally between Canada and Mexico, without touching U.S. systems, that income vanishes. And the speed advantage is not theoretical. Rail operators on the corridor say they can shave 4 to 5 hours off average delivery times between Mexico and Canada, enough to beat traditional truck routes through U.S. ports like Laredo and Buffalo. That time savings is particularly critical for high-value cargo, such as electronics, EV batteries, or perishables. These goods often pay premium rates to skip queues, but now they have an even faster route, one that skips the U.S. entirely. The effects are already rippling through industries. In April 2025, General Motors paused production at its Ingersoll, Ontario plant, laying off over 1,200 workers due to battery supply realignments. Analysts suggest that while the pause was officially labeled as a retooling delay, it reflects broader supply chain adjustments tied to the corridor. Each lost assembly job carries downstream effects up to 9 additional jobs in parts, plants, trucking, and local services. Zooming out, the Alliance for Automotive Innovation estimates that 10.1 million American jobs depend on the auto industry, including part suppliers, transport workers, and dealership staff. If even a small portion of battery or steel production shifts permanently to Canada and Mexico via this corridor, the Midwest, home to many of these jobs, could feel the pinch. Unions are already raising concerns. The Longshore Workers Union recently called proposed tariffs an economic war on working folks, after cargo volume through Los Angeles and Long Beach ports dropped by 30% in a single month. Their fear is that once trade routes shift, they may never shift back. This loss of leverage once freight starts flowing through Mazatlan or Prince Rupert could permanently weaken union bargaining power at traditional U.S. ports. On Capitol Hill, the political debate is heating up. Congressional aides are reportedly modeling potential impacts on jobs, tax revenue, and factory output if corridor use continues to grow. Early estimates suggest that if just 10% of U.S. trade with Canada and Mexico is diverted to the corridor, the U.S. could lose over $160 billion in cargo processing, along with the associated revenue and job support. Yet this isn't just about money, it's about leverage. For decades, the United States has used its dominant position in North American trade as a geopolitical tool. But if goods no longer cross U.S. soil, then Washington's ability to enforce economic influence diminishes. Customs enforcement, inspections, and tariff